began this event with 22 poker players who each parted with $100,000 of their own cash. We've lost some empty-handed, but for those that still remain, they all hope to be the one to turn their $100,000 into over $1 million.
Taking it well.
Welcome to the feature table at the Crown Casino. Here are the gentlemen ready to do battle. In seat 1, Antanas Guga from Lithuania, or to you and me, it's Aussie Tony G. In seat 2, the most famous Dane since Hamlet, it's Gus Hansen. In seat 5, from Russia, Mikhail Smirnov. In seat 6, main event winner from Australia on home turf, Joe Hasham. And in seat 8, he's half Hasham's age, but he won't be intimidated. It's Dan Smith. And the man at the top of the heap is the Russian Mikhail Smirnov. Everybody else around the 300,000 mark. 5 players remain. 1 goes home with nothing. We've been playing the best part of 10 hours. Gus was looking a bit tired earlier, but he's chirpy now. Here's our chip leader with a smile on his face, understandably so. And here is young Dan Smith, very much the junior at this table in terms of age. Calls with the 8-6 of clubs. And both players pick up middle pair. They both have a straight draw. Dan Smith, though, has the clubs. Smith has a better kicker at the moment. And he lets Tony see a free one. It's a good one for Dan Smith. He has made the club flush. Tony just has 6s and 7s, which is exactly what Dan Smith will be hoping to put him at, with a bet of 34,000. Earlier in the tournament, Tony made a great laydown of pocket jacks against Dan Smith, but right now he cannot repeat that, and he's going to lose a hefty slice of his stack. Still pretty much even between the 4 players trailing our Russian. Nothing for Tony there. Gus, who has been putting the pressure on all day long and getting cooled pretty much all day long by Mikhail Smirnov. Dan Smith, 17,000. Pair of deuces. That's a tight fold. Turns out to be a good one, because Gus Hansen has picked up a set of 5s. And for once, he might be able to get the better of his Russian opponent. Smirnov with middle pair checks. Gus can't lose this hand. How cannily will he play this? Hoping to extract the max. Mikhail Smirnov has been Gus's jinx for most of this final table. Will that have gone to his head? Will he believe he just can't lose against Gus? Third diamond and a possible straight out there. And Gus just checks. Quick check from Smirnov.
3-5.
That 7 probably saved him a little bit of money as it made Gus put the brakes on. So Gus wins one, but in terms of how many chips Smirnov has got, very much a flesh wound. Blinds at 5 and 10,000. It's pot limit pre-flop and no limit after the flop. That can have the effect of pricing people in to see the first 3 cards.
Cool.
A pair each, but crucially Dan Smith has the bigger one and now he's turned it into trips. Tony, Jackson 4s, King Kicker.
Check.
Dan Smith puts the cheese in the trap and Tony obligingly goes towards it.
Cool.
It's a fairly harmless looking 10. Dan Smith checks again,
3 jacks.
hoping to get a bet, but Tony too wise for that. Shakes his head rather sorrowfully. And Dan Smith coming alive at just the right time now. Remember, the next person out will walk away potless. Everybody else will have a handsome payday.
200 back, bro. Good list.
Dan Smith checking how much Tony G has left in his stack. Tony says just under 200,000. Dan says it's going to cost you 10% of that. Tony G with the walking sticks, pocket 7s, makes the investment, and it proves to be a very good one. Dan Smith has backdoor straight and flush draws. But Tony with 3 7s. Must feel he has him on the ropes right now.
27. Cool.
Now this could get Smith into a whole world of pain. He's got top pair now with a decent queen kicker. Tony G without the trash talking is a different kettle of fish. There's much less bluster, and I suppose when he's not talking he must be thinking, which can only be good for any poker player's game.
Cool.
Oh, and this is going to be nasty for Dan Smith. His hand's got better and better, at least in his head. He doesn't know that he is walking into a precipice here, and there are some sharpened sticks at the bottom of it. He's got top 2 pair,
Cool.
66,000.
3 jacks. 3 7s.
Tony declines to come over the top.
I let you get there. Unfortunately, it's a tournament, right? Still, you know, a nice chat.
Even Tony's trash talk is rather pleasant these days.
You thought you
Joe Hasham,
had a victim, but I had a surprise.
You'd have a surprise.
Australia's big main event winner.
Big stick.
He's pumped it up with ace-10.
When the rabbit's got the gun, it's no longer fun, right? When the bunny's got the gun, it's no longer fun.
I had one, I thought I
No
had
longer fun when the bunny's got the gun.
Tony reeling out his old catchphrases now.
Cool. Check.
Piece of that for both players.
Backers are getting nervous now.
I don't think
Letting
anyone.
them down.
don't think anyone were paying attention.
30.
Joe makes it 30.
No, I'm not swimming anymore.
I'd put you to the
Smirnoff with
Pardon?
You tilted up.
nearly half the chips
not at
on
all.
the table.
It's fun.
It'd be nice to have you tilted a bit.
Might be feeling invincible. And he's gone all in.
Call.
All in for $1 million. Immediate call from Joe Hasham, and that is a misstep. And the first big one by our Russian contender. This could put a hole in his stack, unless he gets lucky. Five on the river is a blank.
Here comes Joe.
So the hometown favourite, Joe Hasham, learnt most of his poker in the Crown Casino. A lot of fans railing him. Dan Smith doesn't want to play Jack-8 off. Hansen on the button.
Raise.
Ace-Jack. Now Smirnoff. Pocket tens. He has really been Gus's nemesis for a lot of this.
Raise. 100.
But he's just taken a bit of a knock. Gus gets the shout of 20 seconds. He does have a time-breaker button if he wants to think about it more. And he re-raises another 168,000.
200 more. Raise.
330.
All in. Call.
All in
All in
and call. Hansen in danger of going out on the bubble. Smirnoff all in for the second time running. The first time it was expensive. The second time, well, it looks good, but he doesn't want to hit a 10 now because that would give Hansen the straight.
2 diamonds. I just did an ace, 4, a 10. There's a 5 of clubs.
A blank on the river sends Gus Hansen to the rail. Big smiles and generous applause from the others. They are in the money. Here's how our chip leaderboard looks. Mikhail Smirnov has increased his dominance. Dan Smith looking handsome enough in second. Short stacks Tony G and Joe Hasham. Blinds up to 6 and 12,000. Tony G, short stacked,
Raise to 40.
pocket tens.
Took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to text, hey, it's Dan. I didn't figure out how, I thought I went like, hey, it's fan.
Raise to 132.
Smirnoff says all in, but it is pot limit pre-flop, so it's limited to 132,000. Enough to cause Joe Hasham some heartache. He would have loved to be the aggressor himself with these pocket eights. But in front of a raise and a re-raise, they don't look so handsome.
All in. Call.
Tony can't wait to move all in, and
All in
it's only
call.
8,000 more for Smirnoff to find himself in a foot race.
Ace, goose, 9.
So far, so good for Tony. The 3 no good,
Yes!
and the 5 means that Tony G is back, and he wants everyone to know about it. Nearly 11 hours in, by no means a marathon compared to some poker tournaments, but when you're playing for these high stakes, the adrenaline and the exhaustion can wear you down. Joe Hasham says he's got a mountain to climb. Well, Dan Smith has got some equipment here which might help him scale our leaderboard. Pocket 5s on the button. He has walked into a pot re-raise by Tony G. 60,000 is the asking price.
196.
And Tony G says, I've got 186. Dan Smith says, fine, I'll put you all in. Or as near as damn it.
20 seconds.
These two have crossed swords a few times before, and usually it's been Dan Smith who's come out on top. Tony G just doubled up, time pressure ticking away. He's in the money now. That might loosen him up a little.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, not this time. He allows the clock to fold his hand for him.
Show it. Show it for 1,000. Just
Will you
tell
trust
them
what I say?
Yeah, of course.
For 1,000?
No.
Okay.
Tony G trying to buy some information there. Dan Smith sensibly keeping his trap shut. This time he has the ace queen. He's on the button.
Raise 28.
28 to go. Tony G
96 total.
aggressive again. Ace 6 suited.
All in.
All in and call.
All in call.
And Tony G slightly in the deep doo-doo here.
Tony G all in with 86 and a half.
Wins the hand, right?
Hearts would help him.
Box
Just the
5,
one there, though.
17. Down in front with his ace queen.
Running
Good
flush,
turn.
running straight cards for Tony G. Oh, that's 6, of course. Well, now
Nine
an 8.
diamonds. Tony, he's hit a 6.
A date with an 8, says Tony. It's asking a lot,
There's a 2 of diamonds.
and it cannot deliver.
There's
Tony G out in 4th place,
Finish striker.
I don't want them to know.
and we are down to 3.
And he picks up 242,000.
Cheers. Can't be given. You guys can't have my toes, you know? Live for us.
Joe Hasham in the middle with the least amount of chips. 3-handed. A lot more hands, of course, become playable.
Raise 27.
The blind still fairly controllable in terms of everyone's stack, with the possible exception of Joe Hasham, who will start to feel pressure, has to maintain fold equity. Queen 7, not a hand you really want to be getting too aggressive with. These are not normal circumstances. Over $1 million Aussie dollars, and he says all in. Can he get that big first prize?
Not more than I think.
75,
Call.
All in call.
Dan Smith feeling obliged to make the call.
you win a race.
He ain't far behind.
Oh, look at the race.
Joe Warren again.
No, really.
Joe Warren again.
The happiest person at the moment is Mikhail.
Flop Jack, King, Ace.
So-
Dan hits his Jack.
Joe can win with a king.
To the turn.
Queen.
Queen. Queen. Queen. To the red card.
Queen puts him in front. Now a king would chop this.
It was a 70 card. That has to cover
70,
through.
10.
15 point
Hasham is back in it.
87 total.
Queen 7 was for you, Hash. You're up there.
Joe not crying out to the heavens, but his brother, who's sitting up in the gallery with the audience. King 8 for Dan Smith. Action on the button, 3-handed.
Raise 27.
The Russian, the one person neither of the other players really wants to get involved with without a premium hand. But Hasham happy to see one with 10-8 in spades. Well, he's hit top pair. Not much there for Dan Smith. Not yet, anyway. Check, check. 3 clubs on the board. Dan Smith has the king of clubs. Both players have picked up an up and down straight draw. But it's still Hashem with top pair who's in front. 30,000 in the context of what we've been seeing is quite a small bet. And Dan Smith
All in, call.
decides to speed things up a bit. A very quick call from Joe Hashem. Top pair. They both have the same straight draw. Dan Smith wants to see a club or a king.
Board of 4, 10, 7, 9, 3 clubs. So 9 and a half.
Hashem once again doubles through young Dan Smith. This has certainly changed things around. Hashem was getting close to the felt, but now, even with the blinds up at 8 and 16,000, there's some room to manoeuvre. On the button, suited ace-9. How's he going to play it?
Raise to 45.
45,000 is your answer. And with a suited ace-10, Dan Smith
27.
may feel emboldened to raise here, even though Hashem has bested him in the last few hands. Ah. It's gone all in and call. And once
All in,
again,
call.
all in and cool. And this time Hashem's in trouble. Some split pot opportunities, although not many.
Jack 7, 9. Go hits his 9.
Joe Hashem in front. Some straightening and flushing opportunities for Dan Smith, but
King of spades, king
they're
of
slightly unlikely. Ooh, well that 9 looks good for Hashem, but he's not happy because that does put the flush opportunity out there.
8 or a spade.
8 or a spade, Dan Smith says it, and it is a spade. The 3 of spades, and Joe Hashem,
You guys don't realise he won the pot.
he's telling the audience, stop clapping, I'm out. So the hometown hero has to leave the stage. Rather anticlimactic for the crowd, but it does set us up with an intriguing match. Young Dan Smith against the canny Russian, Mikhail Smirnov. After more than 12 hours, we're heads up.
Oh, I guess I should look at my card.
And good advice to any young poker player there from Dan Smith. These ones are worth looking at. Fish hooks.
36.
Raise to 36.
And the Russian relaxing more and more. He would not be relaxed if he could see the situation he's in here, because 2
Raise.
hefty pairs heads up. We could see an awful lot of money go in the middle here. The winner gets over $1 million Aussie dollars. And poker players always complain if they come second, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or anything but first.
20 seconds.
So this will be a happy winner and a sore loser. Whatever way it pans out. Smith
Raise to 200.
re-raises.
Raise to 600. All in.
All in and call.
All in, call.
There's 2 red jacks.
Got him flush dominated.
Very flush dominated. Danny's the at-risk player.
Dan Smith pointing out that no flush is going to save Smirnov. He's got a fade of 10. So far, so good. And this would give Dan Smith the chip lead.
For the queens. For the jacks of Dan Smith.
Or it could be all over.
Let's have a look at the turn card.
7 on the turn is another safe card. Just needs to dodge 1 of the 2 tens.
No, that'd be
Double up
terrible.
here.
10 of spades.
2 tens in the deck.
Have a look at the river.
Can Mikhail hit one? He
5
cannot.
on the river. Safe card. Dan's going to double up here. Count the chips.
And this is a lot of traffic moving across the table, and we can see that Dan Smith now rules the roost. Mikhail Smirnov about $500,000 behind. But if we get hold cards like that again, don't be surprised to see the chips move in the other direction. Blinds 10 and 20,000. They both have plenty of ammunition. But great cards again on the button for Smirnov. And Smith again with a very, very playable hand heads up. Nice to see a bottle of champagne on the table. Up and down draw for Dan Smith. Middle pair for Mikhail. So far, so good for the Russian. If this holds up, he might even open the bottle of pop. Check, check. And that 7 doesn't help Dan Smith. Little time warning there. 110,000 from Dan Smith with pretty much air. Smirnov only 1 overcard to his 10. Going to cost him about an 1/8 of his stack or a 1/7 of his stack. And he does make the good call. Dan Smith, queen high. And Smirnov moves back. And we're practically level pegging. Ace 8 in spades. Dan Smith, Jack 9. It's been raised into him. How fast does he want to play these?
125,000.
Put the pedal on. But an extremely quick call from Mikhail. Mikhail will be delighted he did make that bet. Aces. And the opportunity to see Dan Smith bluff into him, but no, it goes check, check. A 10 would now give Smith the straight. But a very, very quick call from Smirnov. And no 10 comes floating down the river. So Dan Smith, really just with that jack in his hand, cannot fancy his chances. Smirnov has called every shot he's fired at him. He seems determined to have another go. 250,000.
250,000.
And he makes the call. Smirnov has been unbudgeable in this hand. And Dan Smith figured he could get him off it. Now he knows different. So the chip lead moves again in the direction of the Russian. Ace on the button for Smith. A raise with King 10. Suited in spades. Been playing a long time now. You can see both players look a little bit fatigued. The attrition can have its effect. All in and call. Dan Smith can't have been too happy with ace 3, but he'll see that he is a marginal favourite.
Ace 3 offsuit.
He needs this to stay alive.
Boost 5 8 2.
Picks up a straight draw, doesn't really matter as long as he can fade a king or a 10. No straights or flushes possible. Certainly not for Mikhail Smirnov. Well, that does give Smirnov a few less outs because the king of hearts and the 10 of hearts are no good. As it is, ace is good enough for Dan Smith. And this is a bit of a ding-dong. Goes one way, then goes the other. Certainly not shy of going all in, these guys. Nearing the 14th hour now. Lines up to 12 and 24. Dan Smith has been building on his advantage. Now got 3/4 of the chips in play. Smirnov under 600,000.
All in call.
All in and call. And Smirnov here absolutely dominated. He does have the hearts. But the 9 at the moment, no good to him. Only one of his cards alive. And straight out of the box, there it is. But a jack would give a straight to Dan Smith.
7 of spades.
King or jack? No.
5 of hearts. Carl double through. We have 400.
So we're even once again. Both players with roughly 1 million chips. All the hard work Dan Smith had done. Turned over rather unfortunately. 10-9 beat King 9, and now Smirnov with a chance to get busy with the bottom of the pile, pocket 2s.
62,000.
Dan Smith, we've seen him play 8-6 suited a lot when the table was 8-handed. So he's surely going to be in love with it, heads up. 38,000 to call. Re-raises to 164,000.
164,000.
Smirnov has a pair, but it's the most vulnerable of pairs. He knows that the best he's really going to be is 50-50.
Cancel.
Time pressure on. This is a tournament decision here. He decides to call.
90 second call, main event, 90 seconds.
This may prove to be the wisest counsel, certainly if he can spike a 2. Ooh, close, but no good, and that's 3 overcards, which he doesn't have. Crucially, nothing for Smith either. And it is Smith to act first.
65,000.
65,000. A fairly timid-looking bet into such a large pot.
Main event next level is
And it does
400,
induce the call.
100 empty.
Check it out.
Empty.
Straight draw now for Dan Smith.
27.
fine. Second call. Take your seats.
A 5, a 10, an 8 or a 6 would put him in front.
Second call. 10 second call. Shuffle up, ready to deal. 400,
This is-
800, 180.
Excellent poker from Smith. Not afraid to put the pressure on with the semiest of semi-bluffs.
Restarted. Last level.
Mikhail
29
chosen to
close,
call
20
again.
to go.
So Mikhail's 2s are still good. Depends whether Dan Smith has the nerve to fire that third crucial barrel and make it loud enough to scare away the Russian. But nothing about Smirnov's demeanour so far gives you the slightest impression that he's going to fold. Dan says, I missed, and Smirnov will turn over his deuces to show that he has 2 pairs. 9's up, and a wry smile from young Dan Smith. Perhaps wondering what he has to do to get this guy to fold a hand. Blind still 12 and 24. On the button, ace 8. Smirnov raises again with his middling connectors.
69,000.
And understandably, with the ace on the button, Dan Smith
154,000.
shovels a bit more in there. Smirnov has shown that he likes to take chances with connecting cards. These are suited in hearts. This time he looks as though he's just going to call. So he wants to see a flop. An 8 could get him into a world of bother here. And even 3 hearts would give him a certain amount of sweating. Ooh. Well, I said an 8 would get him into trouble. 8 and a 9 is a perfect result. No one has a spade. Dan Smith, middle pair, top kicker. This could be a masterstroke by Smirnov. He's checked into him, hoping for the bet.
Check.
As it is, it goes check, check.
Check it out.
Well, scary in some ways. Anyone with a 6 or a jack has now leapt ahead of his 2 pair. That's before we start worrying about the spades. There's also another card higher than Dan Smith's 8. Remember, they've been playing for nearly 15 hours. So you've got to factor in exhaustion
3,
into some of these decisions.
1, call.
Very late call, just as the buzzer went.
Check it out.
That 4 does not help him.
Check and check.
Smirnov checks, perhaps hoping for a bet. Didn't get one. Struggling to turn over his cards, but Dan Smith will see the bad news. A rather long sigh from our delicately bearded young player.
Now, that's a 500 plus pay pot there. 2 pair, 8s and 9s.
A little bit of counting to do for Mikhail. And while he's doing that, cards flipped out. Blinds up to 15 and 30,000. Pocket pair, Dan Smith. Pot limit before the flop, remember. But with these sets of whole cards,
195,000.
we could see all the chips go in. 3 bet, 4 bet, 5 bet. Who knows? That's the first sign of real tiredness Smirnov has shown.
195 X.
He's 195, you're 585.
The dealer just doing the accountancy for them. Mikhail facing a bet of nearly 400,000. Decides to move all in and call. So, pocket sixes against ace queen. It's a classic Hold'em confrontation. All the hours of skill, endurance, guesswork, reading other people come down, as they so often do, to a coin toss. At the moment, Dan Smith marginally in front.
6 would be excellent.
A 6 would be excellent. Well, no good. Running straight opportunities for Mikhail.
Oh no. As long as I don't get counterfeited.
Oh, counterfeited. Another 9, of course, would give a better 2-pair and kicker to Mikhail. That would be the cruelest way for Dan to hit the rail. It's not. His 6s survive, and it is a pot of over 2 million. This leaves Mikhail Smirnov in deep trouble. He's pretty much obliged to go all in whatever he gets. Does Dan Smith even need to look? Well, a pair of 2s ain't great, but it's good enough. Certainly good enough for Smirnov to go all in with queen 6. He has to double through at least a couple of times to get back in this. He'll be grateful that his queen 6 is not dominated, has a sporting chance. Well, he'll need running hearts, a queen or a 6. That's no good, so it has to be a queen or a 6, or we have a winner here, and it will be Dan Smith. And it is. Young Dan Smith walks away with over 1 million Aussie dollars. Mikhail Smirnov was strong. He caused even Gus Hansen a lot of problems, but he could not get past this man, our champion.
Congratulations, Dan.
Appreciate
on
it.
behalf of Crown Melbourne, your championship ring.
Thank you.
And a cash prize of a little bit over $1 million. Well done.
That'll do.
You have the bottle of Moet as well.
I like that.
Tell us about that battle and what that did to you.
Really quickly. Well, in the first hand I doubled up and had some momentum, and then I just lost all of the pots for a while. I mean, we just went up and down a bunch of times. We were both on the brink of elimination a few times. Like 3 hours ago, I had him down to 3 outs, and he got me, and I was real short. It was real tough. He was really fighting over the pots.
Now you've got the rest of the night to celebrate. Is that what you're going to do, or you have a big day tomorrow for the main event?
A combination of the two.
Join us next time as the excitement continues in the Aussie Millions $250,000 challenge.